Because she was ready before. But Lisa is a developer. But she was ready before I left the hotel. So. Yeah.
Εμείς πού είμαστε? Εγώ πιο πίσω, με τα σημάδια. Εντάξει εδώ. Εντάξει. Τώρα να ετοιμάσετε τη θέση σας.
Again. So, welcome. Very much. Thanks once again. So please come in. Okay, so in a bit. This one, okay.
I think I saw you somewhere.
Good morning.
Such a lovely place. We're voting today. So it's still, yes. So we are staying. The vote is today. Hopefully.
You go there and
Got it.
okay.
That's an interesting choreography. Good morning.
Good morning. So fresh and ready for
Yes,
the
ready to start. Great weather.
Not that it matters when we are inside.
Yeah. Thank you. So, yes, please. Where should I? It's better here? Perfect.
There's a sign over there.
No, we'll say at the camera. We'll say at the camera. So, busy agenda today, definitely for us. We are from Latvia, so we're following very closely what's going on with our discussion, of course, about Russia. And our core interests as the European Union, we need to set and define them. What we see is that, unfortunately, Russia will remain a long-term existential threat for all European Union. So our response must be determined and bold. We need to stay united. This is the first thing and first message. And we are seeing threats in the last days and weeks, direct threats from Russia towards Baltic states and not only Baltic states. And we don't see any other way how to strengthen our policies. So what we are doing is more sanctions, more economic pressure. Unfortunately, they are not ready and not willing to start real peace negotiations. So what we need to do is to push them towards peace negotiations. And if we are able to harm them economically, they would have no chance then to really start to talk about peace. So this is our perspective on that. Of course, Middle East adds some additional perspective towards our geopolitical challenges. And let's not forget that Iran is actually helping Russia to wage war against Ukraine. More than 50,000 Shahed drones were produced in Iran and then used to kill Ukrainian civilians and soldiers. So let's not forget that they are actually closely tied together, and one problem is closely linked to another problem. We actually have a chance to start on a different level, cooperating with the Gulf countries on energy efficiency, on renewables, on trade, of course, and politically. This is our chance to get these countries closer to us, and so we need to do all in our hands to actually use that. And last but not least, European defense strategy should reflect all of this, and not only. We need to have more industry here in Europe. We need to be able to produce if we want to be safe and secure.
Minister, do you think that Special Envoy from the European side would help to push Russia to the fight?
Well, one very important thing, we must be at the negotiating table, because it's not only about war between Russia and Ukraine, it's about the peace in Europe in the long term. So this is first thing, we need to be there. It's hard to predict what exactly would help. Probably Special Envoy, probably someone who is not at the moment active in politics, but probably and most likely economic pressure. But we need to be able to provide options, and this is the main thing for us.
What do you think should be done to support Ukraine more? There is a lot of talks about giving them accession or opening clusters. Talks also about light memberships, and there is also talks about more equal support. What do you think about all these options?
Well, everything should be done, definitely. We are we should be straightforward and open all the negotiation clusters as soon as possible with Ukraine and Moldova. Let's not forget about that. And hopefully in June we'll do that. This is not only symbolic, this is a clear path towards European Union, and accession to Europe and also closer cooperation to NATO is one of main security guarantees for Ukraine. Yes, there are discussions about different models, how we can move forward with the accession process. We are open to that, but the main thing is that those alternative models, they shouldn't undermine the main goal, that Ukraine should be part of the European Union. And of course, we are always asking our partners to do as much as they can. Latvia is spending more than 0.3% of our GDP just towards helping Ukraine. And it's quite a huge number, to be fair, but we also have a lot of partners who do equal, and this is always on the table, because the needs are always. We saw the winter was terrifying with all the attacks on energy infrastructure. It took a lot from us to try to help, and we sometimes don't have enough capacity as Europe. Sometimes we can't produce things enough. So that's why all these discussions about our independence are crucial, because if there is any other crisis, and we cannot be sure that there is nothing else, we need to be sure that we can do on our own as much as we can.
What should the red lines be engaging?
Red lines. Well, red lines are definitely, if we talk from a perspective of the peace talks, for example, peace must be just and lasting. We will not agree to something that will just stop the war for a month or two, and then Russia can regroup and start the war again. So our red line is also forgetting all the crimes, what has been done, and that's why we have been invested so much in the establishment of tribunal against war crimes. So there are several on them. But the main thing is, yes, once again, I must reiterate, Russia is a real, imminent threat and long-lasting threat. And we can't forget it. We can't go back to business as usual.
And yet we're hearing more details of the US moving military assets out of Europe, or planning to do so. Is Europe ready?
Well, we heard a lot of comments on that, but the latest development is that actually U.S. is moving more troops in our region, which is to Poland. So, the debate on that is heated, and it probably will always be heated, but let's not listen to the comments or some, speculations. Let's see on the real things what's happening now. And we see that the results are actually quite the opposite. None of the less, we need to make sure that we have these capabilities also here, also in Europe, without our transatlantic partners, who are very important to us and indispensable part of NATO. And this is why we are investing already 5% of our GDP towards defense. And we are building our capabilities, so we'll make sure that we are stronger on our own. You had a question?
So would you favor a non-active politician, especially EU envoy for Ukraine talks?
I think it's too early to discuss that. I think it's too early to discuss. We have our...
That's what you said before.
But that's true. That's true. We are not at the point where we're discussing names. We are discussing principles right now. And our first task is to make sure that we are actually on the table of negotiations. And then we'll discuss names. So, probably the last one.
Are you hopeful that you will have some decisions made today regarding either opening of clusters for Ukraine or sanctions?
Well, I'm not sure that we will come up with the exact decision, but we'll discuss both of that. And I'm hopeful that we'll get the feeling of support towards opening clusters in the room. There's some small technical work needed to be done, but, well, I think we would be ready to do it in June, hopefully.
Technical work on which of the two?
On opening the clusters. With the sanctions, we are moving on with the next sanctions package, and we want to see as much on the maritime service ban and the shadow fleet ban as possible. Thank you, and have a great day. We have a lot of colleagues. Thanks.
Really, I went to swim yesterday, and for the Nordic people, 20 plus is really crazy and good thing. But today we're going to focus on what Europe should do to secure the security for Europe. So everybody is talking about who will be the person who is going to talk to Putin. But the reality, as you know, is that Putin doesn't want to talk anything. So he's putting more pressure on Ukraine. We see every night attacks, crazy attacks against Ukrainian people. So we need to focus on how can we make the European position strong. And we have lots of decisions to make. First principle is territorial integrity. So if we can bring in Putin in the future, it's putting more pressure on him. So we need to focus on these principles. Territorial integrity. The second is sovereignty for Ukraine. It means as well the enlargement process. It means a NATO membership for the future, security guarantees. If you're talking about security guarantees, then we don't mean only the security guarantees to Ukraine, but also the Ukraine security guarantees to Europe. Because, to be honest, Ukraine is the largest military power in Europe, in our region. So we need to understand these core principles. As well, let's discuss how to bring Putin to the table to negotiate, because he doesn't want to negotiate anything. So we need to put more pressure on Russia. So 21st sanction package, I do hope to see it very quickly. As well, opening all the clusters for Ukraine, Moldova, because the understanding is that in the future we cannot have any neutrality zones or these kind of buffer zones between European Union, NATO and Russia. So bring in Ukraine. Support Ukraine more if you do it right now. And this is like the core. And then, of course, we can find, if the time is right, who's going to represent Europe. But this is a trap now that Putin wants to bring Europe in. You can imagine, of course, that if somebody is going to knock the Kremlin door, and let's meet now, Putin will put the same demands on the table he has put on the table during this President Trump's negotiations. And just his main goal is to win more time and bring Europe into this mediating position. And mediating means neutrality. So we won't talk anything about the more pressure on Russia in the future. So we see that Putin is weaker position now, and we need to have this strategic patience. Just strategic patience, and follow the strategy what we have had. Very good peace plan. 2 points. More pressure on Russia and support to Ukraine. And maybe then Putin is going to change the goals. And maybe then in the future there will be some kind of talks. And then we need to not mediate, but be together with Ukraine in these talks. So that's the main idea. Very easy.
How to bring Putin to the negotiations table? There is a lot of talks
Whoever would like to go right now, this guy is not going to have a Nobel Prize because there won't be any serious talks. So more pressure because we see the first signs that Putin is now weaker, and as well support to Ukraine. Ukraine needs to continue these deep strikes. They call it deep sanctions. They're working well. And we should just put more pressure on and have this strategic patience. But my colleagues would like to say something good as well for you. So let's enjoy today, important day. Yep.
What should be the collective European response to this?
To who, what?
The
US.
The US. Yes.
Doing more. We know already from the first day when President Trump entered the office and said that Europe must do more and we must do more. But of course this transatlantic relation is so important. But let's focus on what we can do. And we can do much more about security defense. Good. Okay, thank you.
It's a commissioner for Mediterranean. Happy to be here this morning in Cyprus because there is no better place to discuss Mediterranean issues but here in Cyprus. It will be a very important meeting, although it's informal. We will discuss the Middle East and situation in the Middle East and the Gulf, of course. Also situation in Ukraine, as you know, and our security strategy. So let's see how the situation will evolve, but we will speak free. All of us are here, and also we will have guests from India. India is very important due to IMEC, as you know, especially for Cyprus. And also we will have a minister from Saudi Arabia, which is also a very important country. So we are trying to do what we can from our European position. As you know, for us it is important to resolve the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, but as you know, we are trying to stay out of this war. But at the same time, it is important because the consequences are huge for the world, but also for Europe in the end, for everyone. So I hope that this meeting will be fruitful and that we will be able to and capable of resolving the issues because Europe is strong, as you know, and 450 million people, and Cyprus is, we say that Europe is as strong as its smallest country. I don't say that Cyprus is the smallest country, but one of the smallest. I come from Croatia, which is also relatively small, but we feel, all of us feel equal in Europe, and this is very important. Thank you so much. Thank you.
This is a good moment for the Ministers of Foreign Affairs to discuss, of course, what are going to be the next steps in support for a sustainable peace in Ukraine. How is it that we are going to enhance our partnership with international partners to be able to find the proper diplomatic pathways to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and make sure together we contribute to lowering the energy prices, but also making sure we do not have a food crisis looming. We welcome the presence of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs. Of course, it is always very important to have with us the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine to be able to discuss the situation on the ground, and we stand strong in our common position not to give in to the intimidation that Russia is trying to pose by the recent statements in terms of the diplomatic teams in Kiev. We also welcome the presence of Ministers of Foreign Affairs of India and Saudi Arabia. It is very important that we discuss with them. Of course, we're at the moment where the EU-India trade deal is now available to companies so that we grow our economies. For Romania as well, it's important in common investments. And with the partners in the Middle East, we continue to have enhanced discussions and collaborations, especially as we contribute to the diplomatic pathways and pressure needed again to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but also make sure that the precedence of having a toll on international water pathways is not a precedent that will continue. A very important conversation conversation is the conversation we're going to have on the European security strategy. We're working on that to have it adopted after the NATO summit. We've hosted in Bucharest recently the Bucharest 9 summit with Nordic allies. And we've discussed there how is it that we're going to advance to a NATO 3.0 status where Europe takes more responsibility on our own defense and deterrence, but in the same time do that in complementarity with the European security strategy. Something very important for Romania in the European security strategy is the focus on the eastern flank, of course, then is to translate in financing and capabilities, and the Black Sea. The Black Sea, it's an economic and geopolitical strategic point connection to the South Caucasus and the Middle East. It is also absolutely essential for landlocked countries to be able to access global markets, but it is also extremely important in terms of energy, in terms of transit route and logistics, as we advance in creating our own strategic autonomy of Europe and the region, and therefore have less dependencies on Russia, and that is of course connected with transportation and logistical routes as well. And I will just name the Middle Corridor, for example, or also the undersea infrastructure and critical cables that we're working with the partners in the region. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Do you have any hopes for progress in terms of accession clusters for Ukraine to support the idea of a sort of middle ground for Ukraine's accession?
Thank you for the question. What is very important is that we stand by our word and that we open the negotiation clusters for Moldova and Ukraine, and that we do that immediately. June is the perfect moment to do that, as we also have the Council. And it is not just about the future, the European future that our neighbors are aspiring to. It is also about the work that they have done and the fact that we need legitimacy in the merit-based process to recognize the reforms that have taken place, but also the work that is yet to be done. In Romania's case, we have seen, once we joined the European Union, that we have tripled our GDP, but also that we've contributed to the security and the economic market of the European Union. So we are strong supporters of the idea that this is in the interest of all. Thank you.
Wir hatten gestern schon ein Abendessen mit dem ukrainischen Außenminister Andriy Sybiha. Es war ein guter Austausch. Ich glaube, es ist spürbar, dass die Ukraine in den letzten Wochen und Monaten an Stärke gewonnen hat. Die wirtschaftliche Wirkungen der Sanktionen in Russland zunehmend spürbar ist und wir auch einen Sinnungswandel spüren. Deshalb ist es, glaube ich, notwendig, heute darüber zu diskutieren, wie wir uns aufstellen. Es geht hier auch um unsere eigenen Interessen, um europäische Sicherheitsinteressen, wenn Sie so wollen, auch um österreichische Sicherheitsinteressen, um das auch vielleicht runterzubrechen. Die Frage einer zukünftigen Sicherheitsarchitektur in Europa ist auch die Frage, wie schaut es aus mit Energieversorgungssicherheit? Kann ich mich darauf verlassen, dass die gegeben ist? Kann ich mich darauf verlassen, dass ich nicht, wenn ich zur Bank gehe, irgendwie eine Cyberattacke zu erwarten habe oder sonstige Sabotageakte auch unsere Sicherheit in Europa gefährden? Daher dränge ich darauf, dass die Europäische Union sich aufstellt, auch über die eigenen Interessen in der Lage ist zu verhandeln und einen Chefverhandler, eine Chefverhandlerin ernennt. Andriy Sybiha war auch gestern klar, dass das durchaus die Erwartungshaltung ist der Ukraine, dass die EU sich jetzt bereit macht. Was mir wichtig ist dabei zu sagen, ist, dass es hier nicht um ein Entweder-Oder geht. Es geht nicht um ein Dialog oder Druck. Ich glaube, es ist gleichzeitig ganz dringend notwendig, den Druck über Sanktionen weiter aufrechtzuerhalten, die Arbeiten an einem 21. Sanktionenpaket jetzt zügig voranzusetzen, dass es auch wirklich ein scharfes Paket wird, weil wir ja auch gerade sehen, dass diese Sanktionen Wirkung zeigen und wir auch so natürlich einen gewissen Leverage in Verhandlungen haben.
Frau Minister, warten Sie heute Gespräche über tatsächliche Verhandlernamen und was ist unsere Position?
Sie kennen die Vorbehalte einiger EU-Staaten zu der Frage eines Chefverhandlers oder einer Chefverhandlerin. Die nehme ich auch sehr ernst. Ich glaube, darüber müssen wir sprechen, dass es eben kein Entweder-Oder ist, dass es nicht darum geht, jetzt Dialog statt Druck, sondern dass wir sagen, wir wollen beides. Wir müssen uns bereit machen. Entweder wir sitzen am Tisch und es wird über die europäischen Interessen und österreichischen Interessen auch von uns gesprochen oder andere werden das machen. Daher daher glaube ich, ist das notwendig. Und ich denke, dahingehend wird die Diskussion sein, wie auch natürlich die Frage der allgemeinen Sicherheitslage und was eigentlich unsere Interessen sind in einen zukünftigen Friedensverhandlungen. Ich wollte gerade sagen, die USA lassen derzeit aus. Der Fokus ist woanders, hoffentlich bei der baldigen diplomatischen Lösung im Wege eines Memorandum of Understanding, was die Öffnung der Straße von Hormuz, aber auch die Nuklearfrage angeht, zwischen den USA und Iran. Es ist ein Vakuum da. Dieses Vakuum gilt zu füllen, weil das erste ist Interesse mal, dass der Krieg endet. Er ist so blutig. Er ist vor allem auch geprägt von massiven Verlusten auf russischer Seite. Also auch das spüren ja die Russen zunehmend, wie viele menschliche Verluste es hier gibt. Er ist natürlich auch für uns wirtschaftlich eine enorme Belastung. Und wie ich gesagt habe, wir haben auch eigene Sicherheitsinteressen. Es gibt viele gemeinsame Interessen, die wir haben, gemeinsam mit der Ukraine. Daher ist es gut und richtig und wichtig, dass wir eine enge Abstimmung mit der Ukraine haben. Da gibt es aber auch einen ganz eigenen EU-Teil, nämlich dass wir wirklich jetzt einmal vorankommen, auch den Reformprozess in Richtung der Beitrittsgespräche mit der Ukraine zu starten. Ich hoffe, dass das bald passiert. Das ist auch in unserem eigenen Interesse, auch in unserem österreichischen Interesse, weil wir für den Wiederaufbau diesen Reformplan brauchen, den nun auch mal die Beitrittsgespräche brauchen und die Ukraine die politische Unterstützung der EU-Mitgliedschaft braucht. Sie wissen ja, ich habe ja auch einen Vorschlag gemacht, wie wir da dieses Instrument der graduellen Integration noch besser nutzen können im Wege von sektoreller Integration. Aber eben, also es gibt viele gemeinsame Interessen, aber es gibt einfach auch ureigenste europäische Interessen und die haben sehr viel mit der Bedrohungslage, mit der aktuellen Sicherheitslage zu tun, wo eben Russland auch für unsere Bürgerinnen und Bürger eine Bedrohung darstellt. Und das sind unsere Interessen und unsere Interessen brechen besser wir in die Verhandlungen ein. In English, something? You want to hear something in English oder passt das gut für Sie? Wunderbar, danke sehr.
Be united and to be disciplined. So this is not a time when we are discussing who is going to have the negotiations. We're not discussing the names. We're not discussing the place at the table. But we have to discuss what we are doing in purpose to put additional pressure on Russia and also give more assistance to Ukraine for Ukraine to sustain these attacks and lead its way to the victory. So what we have to discuss now is how we will increase pressure through 21st sanctions package. Lithuania returns again and again to our proposals to sanction Rosatom, sanction Lukoil. We have to introduce full maritime service ban. And we also have to deny the possibility for Russia to export potash fertilizers to Europe. This is really important. The second package is on supporting Ukraine. We have to open all 6 clusters this June. We have no right to wait any longer. We have to also agree how we will proceed further with the long-term financial assistance to Ukraine. And also what is really important is to include Ukraine more and more into the different solutions, how we are strengthening our resilience on Eastern Front line. What concerns European security strategy, for us it is extremely important to have the full picture of the threats. We understand that the threats are multifaceted, but we have to prioritize what is existential and what is not. So existential threats are now on the eastern flank, and that is why we have to immediately to move into strengthening the eastern flank and also introduce additional instruments in putting more effectiveness through finances on resilience on eastern flank. In doing this, we have to understand that in the future we will build a European architecture that will be based on the principle of deterrence of Russia, not of the including of Russia into this system, because we have to build strengths right now till we have the time. And with Ukraine at its very core. Yeah? Thank you.
Ungleichgewicht in welcher Hinsicht bei der Unterstützung der Ukraine? Deutschland unterstützt die Ukraine seit Ausbruch dieses Krieges entschlossen. Man sieht es schon alleine auch an den Summen, die hier für die Ukraine bereitgestellt werden. Nicht nur im militärischen Bereich, sondern auch vor allem im zivilen Bereich. Es ist wichtig, das Land in Kriegszeiten auch zu stabilisieren. Das hört sich so trivial an, ist es aber nicht. Und das ist natürlich auch unser Interesse. Das heißt, es geht weiter parallel trotz des Krieges, dass die Ukraine sich auch der Europäischen Union annähert. Da stehen wir auch bereit. Kanzler Merz hat einen Vorschlag gemacht der assoziierten Mitgliedschaft. Das ist der richtige Vorstoß. Wir müssen hier die Debatte beleben. Denn eines ist ja auch klar, die Vollmitgliedschaft in der Europäischen Union bleibt das Ziel, bleibt das Hauptziel. Das gilt selbstverständlich auch für die Staaten des sogenannten westlichen Balkans. Das heißt, wir offerieren hier der Ukraine in jedem Fall jetzt eine Lösung, einen Weg, aber es müssen sich deswegen die Menschen, die jetzt in Albanien leben, in Montenegro leben, in den Westbalkanstaaten, keine Gedanken machen, dass sie wirklich im falschen Land leben würden. Ganz im Gegenteil, auch sie haben eine Beitrittsperspektive und siehe Montenegro als Beispiel, da geht es ja in großen Schritten auch voran.
Herr Staatsminister, warum ist Deutschland eigentlich so kritisch gegenübergestellt, einen speziellen Envoy, einen Verhandler
Wie gesagt, es hatte ich jetzt auch gerade schon erwähnt gehabt, es geht zunächst einmal darum, dass Russland runterkommt von dieser Eskalationsspirale der Gewalt, der Einsatz der Hyperschallraketen mit einer enormen Zerstörungskraft, gerade jetzt auch am Wochenende, und das geht ja fort. Hat gezeigt, dass es Russland aktuell anscheinend überhaupt nicht darauf ankommt, hier seine Aggression zu unterbinden. Ganz im Gegenteil. Hier muss der Druck auch weiter auf Russland steigen. Sie wissen, das 21. Sanktionspaket ist bereits jetzt in Vorbereitung. Der Druck auf Russland muss steigen. Und das ist ja jetzt auch so wichtig. Wir haben nicht umsonst den saudischen Außenminister auch heute zu Gast. Man muss eben wissen, dass mit der Blockade der Straße von Hormuz Öl nicht nur weltweit knapp wird, sondern dann auch dazu geeignet ist, Russland Geld in die Kasse zu spülen. Das muss unterbunden werden, weil Russland damit natürlich seinen Krieg in der Ukraine weiter finanziert.
Herr Minister, Shell-Verhandler, ja oder nein? Ich habe das jetzt nicht verstanden.
Ich sage, es ist eine Frage der Reihenfolge und das ist erstmal für mich wichtig und dann können wir über alles Weitere reden. Sie wissen gut genug, beispielsweise hatte ja Herr Putin Gerhard Schröder vorgeschlagen. Das ist für uns nicht akzeptabel. Außerdem diktiert hier Russland nicht die Spielregeln. Das muss in aller Deutlichkeit gesagt werden. Und eines Tages, wenn es einen Vermittler gibt, dann muss dieser Vermittler auch von allen Seiten, vor allem von der Ukraine, auch akzeptiert werden. Die Ukraine wurde überfallen. Die Ukraine ist ein souveränes Land. Die Integrität der Ukraine wurde verletzt. Das muss man immer wieder in Erinnerung rufen. Deswegen, es bedarf dann auch der Akzeptanz durch die Ukraine selbst. Herzlichen Dank, vielen Dank.
have the right tire, no tie.
I would take it with no tie.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. See you.
You can see the development.
Starting with ties.
Yeah, yeah. Although, for you it's really funny. You take off and it's red,
You two are beautiful. You are tough.
but we will see later on.
Very important meeting today. We are in front of the most important global crisis of this century, and the voice of Europe must be an important voice, a voice of reason, of balance, diplomacy and negotiation. We have the Middle East, where, of course, there is no military solution. There is no military solution for the Strait of Hormuz. And the voice of Spain and the voice of Europe must be one of encouraging all parties to negotiate, to continue negotiating, to stabilize and to make permanent the ceasefire, to stop all bombing, all launchings of missiles from Iran to the countries of the Gulf, and to, of course, open the Strait of Hormuz in a free, secure, and with no charge for any boat that wants to cross it. Same thing in the Middle East, where we are very worried for the news that insist that Israel thinks that war is the only possibility and the only way to relate to the other peoples of the Middle East. The order of declaring the south of Lebanon as a zone of war and to tell everyone to leave the area, it's completely unacceptable. It's contrary to the international law. Israel must accept that the other countries has exactly the same right that Israel has to have their own state and to have a state in peace and security. Israel has a right to have its state peacefully and in security. But the Palestinian people, the Lebanese people have exactly the same right. And that's why the voice of Europe must go very high, telling Israel that if they want to relate with us normally, they cannot behave like that. Democracies don't violate international law. They don't violate human rights. The other area that it's of great concern is Ukraine. In the last few days, we have seen a new jump, a new escalation in this logic of terror of Russia, indiscriminated bombing in Kiev and in other civilian areas. This shows that Russia has no will at all for peace, for ceasefire, for negotiation. Therefore, we must be prepared to continue backing Ukraine for as long as it takes and to make sure that they will continue being a free and an independent country. And in order to do that, we have to help Ukraine in all possible manners. Because at the end of the day, as Europeans, we have to realize that whatever peace agreement at the end of the day there will be between Ukraine and Russia, and I'm sure that one day peace will go back to Ukraine, that will be also the scheme of security of Europe.
Minister, what is your ideal
position? I will go.
The Spanish position on the idea to name envoy, a special envoy. What do you think about this? Is it a good
Excuse me, can you repeat, because it was
Yes.
a special envoy on?
The special envoy on Ukraine peace talks, that's also on the agenda. What do you think? What is the Spanish position?
First of all, we should follow what Ukraine wants. We must not forget that Ukraine is a sovereign country with a democratically elected government, so it's to them to tell us. But if they encourage us, and they are encouraging us to have a voice with Russia, I think that that's right. A special envoy, maybe it's not necessary. We already have our own institutions and our own channel. What's important, more than talking about the special envoy in itself, what it seems interesting to me of that idea is that it has to be one voice. We cannot start to run on every direction with goodwill, but 27 saying anything what we want. We have to have either a platform of countries or use our institutions, one voice, more than one person. That's what's important.
Would you be pushing for sanctions on Israel today?
Yes, of course. Of course. I've been very clear on that. I think that as long as the situation continues being like this, we cannot have an association council business as usual. Once again, Association Council is a tool that we have with very few countries, countries that are very close to us, and above all, that share our values. Therefore, I'm calling for suspension. And the minimum is, for instance, what many of my colleagues with me, they are asking, is to prevent Vengraev from entering the EU.
We're seeing a very great spread, gradations of positions on Israel in the last year, since these issues began to be raised. We begin to see more convergence between EU partners.
Yes, that's correct. I think that things are shifting. Things that we are seeing are unbearable. The news we are getting from yesterday saying that Israel insists in the war against a sovereign country that has nothing to do with this situation, and is Lebanon, with a government that is really committed to disarm Hezbollah, that we condemn also very strongly, and that is committed to guarantee stability for the Lebanese people and for everyone in the Middle East. This is completely unacceptable. So, of course, those things makes that there is more convergence. That's why I think we should also go to a vote to see if the parts in which it's not unanimity but qualified majority that is required for the Association Council are there. Because what I see is that there is already a majority of countries around the table in favor of following what Spain is leading. Let's see if that majority is also a qualified majority. I will take la prensa española. No entremos en algo que por el momento es puramente mediático. Ninguno de esos nombres que yo he visto en la prensa, y he visto algunos nombres y algunos de ellos tienen grandes cualidades políticas y son figuras políticas que yo mismo he conocido y he podido constatar su capacidad, ninguno de esos nombres ha estado ni de cerca ni de lejos en la mesa. Estamos en un estado muy incipiente. Es una reflexión que viene inspirada por nuestros amigos ucranianos. Pero de verdad, insisto, lo importante no es el nombre. Lo importante es el enfoque, y el enfoque tiene que ser una sola voz. Puede ser una persona, puede ser una de las personas. Tenemos una alta representante también. Puede ser un directorio de países, tal vez directorio no es la mejor palabra, puede ser un grupo de países, una plataforma de países. Lo importante es que encontremos la forma en que los 27 hablemos con una única voz, y esa reflexión está todavía muy incipiente. Y igual que es muy importante que hablemos con una sola voz, tenemos que tener claro que cualquier cosa que se haga en esa dirección tiene que tener el acuerdo y tiene que estar hablado previamente con Ucrania. Por lo tanto, diálogo con Ucrania, como vamos a tener aquí. Nuestro colega ucraniano Andrés Sivilla, un buen amigo mío, está aquí. Ayer estuvo también en nuestra cena informal, igual que están dos grandes amigos de España, el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores de Arabia Saudí y el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores de India. Tengamos ese diálogo con Ucrania. Posteriormente decidamos cómo vamos a trasladar esa única voz unificada. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
There's still a proposal from the Commission on curbing trade with
Yes, it's of course all that is it's on the table. It has never been withdrawn. That's why I'm asking to move to a vote to see if there is a qualified majority. Anyhow, that decision, it should be directly implemented by the European Union, because it's just following the international justice ruling and the United Nations different declarations, the advisory opinions of the International Court of Justice, so it shouldn't take anything. But if someone needs that vote, let's go for it. Spain is prepared. So we need a proposal first. We need a proposal first, and that's why I encourage the High Representative to bring the proposal that it was brought by the Commission. Yes, thank you.
Στον κόσμο για το ζήτημα της στρατηγικής αυτονομίας της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Η στρατηγική αυτονομία σημαίνει ανταγωνιστικότητα, αλλά ανταγωνιστικότητα με συνοχή και σύγκληση, σημαίνει ανθεκτικότητα, ενεργειακή και αμυντική, και βεβαίως σημαίνει αλληλεγγύη. Και αλληλεγγύη όλων των κρατών, έτσι ώστε να μπορέσει να ενδυναμωθεί η Ευρωπαϊκή Συμμαχία και να αποκτήσει τη δύναμη και την ισχύ η οποία της αρμόζει. Θα ήθελα ιδιαιτέρως να επισημάνω την ανάγκη στο πλαίσιο της στρατηγικής αυτονομίας να αναπτυχθεί μια πολιτική η οποία θα είναι 360 μοιρών, θα κοιτάει συνολικά τον κόσμο και ιδίως τον παγκόσμιο νότο. Σήμερα θα έχουμε την ευκαιρία να συζητήσουμε για τα ζητήματα που μας αφορούν με τον Υπουργό Εξωτερικών της Σαουδικής Αραβίας και της Ινδίας, δύο εξαιρετικά κρίσιμες χώρες με τις οποίες η Ελλάδα διατηρεί στρατηγική σχέση. Θέλω να επισημάνω την ανάγκη της στήρησης σε καθολικό επίπεδο του διεθνούς δικαίου. Καμία απόπειρα σε βάρος πολιτικών υποδομών, καμία απόπειρα σε βάρος αμάχων δεν μπορεί να γίνει ανεκτή. Όπως επίσης θα πρέπει όλοι να αρθρώσουμε μια ενιαία ισχυρή φωνή κατά οποιουδήποτε αναθεωρητισμού. Ο αναθεωρητισμός σε ένα εξαιρετικά εύθραυστο γεωπολιτικό περιβάλλον σημαίνει πολύ μεγαλύτερη ανησυχία, σημαίνει στην πραγματικότητα τη δημιουργία παγκόσμιων εντάσεων σε βάρος των πολιτών όλου του κόσμου. Σας ευχαριστώ. Thank you.
Unser Präsident ist natürlich sehr qualifiziert in vielen Sinne und kann natürlich aus der finnischen Perspektive das auch beurteilen, was die russische Bedrohung auch auf lange Sicht angeht. Das gesagt, kennen wir natürlich auch Russland auf vieler Weise und hoffen auf nichts anderes, als dass es so bald wie möglich zu Frieden kommt im Ukraine-Krieg, aber dass auch sagen wir mal, das Verhältnis zwischen Europa und Russland normalisiert wird. Das bedingt natürlich, dass Russland sich endlich wieder an das internationale Recht hält, an das Völkerrecht und hoffentlich sich auch der eigenen Bevölkerung gegenüber öffnet. Aber bis das passiert, wird es noch lange dauern. Wir brauchen aber europäisch gesehen, wir brauchen einen Prozess, wo wir ein starkes Mandat haben für diesen Prozess eben, der vielleicht auch monatelang dauern kann, trotz des Faktes, dass die Lage für Russland jetzt momentan nicht sehr gut aussieht und die Entwicklung für die Ukraine seit Anfang des Jahres sehr positiv gewesen ist, in dem Sinne natürlich, dass die Ukraine leider sich tagtäglich wehren muss und dass Russland wirklich brutal zivile Infrastruktur angreift. Aber die Karten sind jetzt wirklich stärker in der Hand der Ukraine und wir hoffen, dass wir gemeinsam zu einer Lösung kommen. Auf jeden Fall muss natürlich Europa an den Verhandlungstisch und da können nicht 27 Mitgliedsländer dabei sein. Und Europa ist natürlich nicht nur die Europäische Union. Aber ich bin zuversichtlich, dass wir gemeinsam uns nicht nur auf ein Mandat einigen können, sondern vielleicht auch auf einige Personen, die diese Rolle übernehmen können. Herzlichen Dank.
Minister, now that there's a lot of stuff, as you mentioned there, about whether you should talk to Russia, but Russia is also threatening to kill EU diplomats in Kyiv. I mean, what's your response to that?
Yeah, well, those threats by Russia, well, they are not new, but not acceptable at all. And at the same time, well, Russia has been targeting civilian infrastructure and civilians since the early days of the war. So we have a clear message to Russia, and we have stated it out. We have also summoned the Russian ambassador in Finland yesterday, that it is completely unacceptable that Russia is targeting missiles and drones against larger cities in Ukraine or civilians in general. And also it is not for Russia to decide where we put our embassies. Thank you so very much.
Meet today in order to discuss mostly about security, and we know how important it is, the security of all of us, Europeans. It means that I have two messages to share to my colleagues. First of all, we need to seize the opportunity of the US decision to pause their involvement in the negotiation process between Ukraine and Russia in order to be finally at the table of negotiation. It is really important because we do not only discuss about the future of our relations with Ukraine and Russia, but we will discuss about the global European architecture, security architecture. It is so important to be at the table and to act, not only watch. And I think that we have to discuss about the content of the potential negotiation process, what kind of project the EU can propose at the table of negotiation. And we also have to define someone to embody also the European message. And second aspect, I would like also to plead for more leading role of the EU in several conflict zones around the world in order to avoid only to be the second one after the US most of the time, but also to be the number uno in the mediation process in several places. I'm thinking about the Sahel, for instance, or Sudan. I think if we want really to act as a geopolitical power, we also need to take the lead in several places and not only being the number two. Thank you.
Can we ask you about the Ukraine process? You were talking about the person, so Mrs. Callas or Mrs. Merkel, who could be the one who...
That's a good question, and I think that we need to take a common decision, not only identifying one person, but also what kind of content we would like to put on the negotiation table. And also, I think that many countries also remember the Minsk agreement, the agreement that finally do not deliver tangible results. And I commend the initiative that could be taken by the E3, but I think that it is not enough. We also need to involve in the process the direct neighbors of Russia, thinking about Poland, the Baltics, Finland, Sweden, other countries. So it's really important to have an open discussion on this issue. Thank you.
idea to have a European envoy or special negotiator for the peace talks with Ukraine. What do you think about this? Is this a good idea?
I think that first of all we need to achieve an agreement. It's impossible to achieve an agreement for peace with justice, of course, in Ukraine. And Europe will be protagonist because without Europe it's impossible to sign the agreement because there are the European sanctions. And if you want to withdraw the European sanctions, we need to have Europe around the table. And then Europe will decide the name of the negotiator. It's not Mr. Putin. For this, we will decide when we need to sign. We will decide our envoy. This is not a Putin decision. It's our decision.
In your view, who could be a good person for that?
I don't know. But there are the institutions. There is the President of the Council, the President of the Commission. For this, there are a lot of institutions. People, for this, I think we need to work at the institutional level. But we will decide now, not now, but when we will have the opportunity to stay all together for the signature of the agreement. But we need time, unfortunately.
How is it a good idea for Europe to start thinking about peace negotiations when it's not sure to be invited at the table?
But it's impossible to sign an agreement without Europe. Also, the Secretary of State Rubio, during many meetings, underlines Europe will be involved in the end of the negotiations because we need to sign. If we want to withdraw the European sanctions, we need to have the Europeans around the table.
Minister, you called for EU sanctions against Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir. Would you also support a ban or restrictions on trade with illegal settlements? There's been a spotlight on Italy's position with regards to that.
The first point is to decide during the next European Council, because this is an informal meeting. We need to talk and to decide sanctions against Minister Ben-Gvir because Ben-Gvir has been protagonist of this incredible attack with the Israeli police against the European citizens. The sanctions against him are only for this history. Then there is a proposal, French proposal, Swedish proposal. We are ready for discussion on this. We will decide now. Probably we will have a proposal by the European Commission. We will study we are ready for talking on this. But I think before we need to put sanctions against Ben-Gvir.
Could you please tell us more on what's your stance on the recent developments in terms of the U.S. commitment to the European security landscape? We see so many conflicting messages from Donald Trump's administration. What should be the European response to this?
But I think I am in favor of the European defense. But I think the transatlantic relations are very, very important. America is a friend of us. For this, we need to talk with the Americans to be friends, but I think it is important at the same time to strengthen the European pillar inside NATO, because there is a big pillar, American pillar, a small pillar, European pillar. We need also a big European pillar. It's our security, is our job, but also we need to work with the Americans. NATO is not only a military agreement, it's also a political agreement, but this is very, very, very important. Our job is not to fight against the American. America is our best friend outside the European Union. For this, we need to work with America. Our security is not against the Americans. Our security is for strong protection of our countries, and we need to work all together also with Americans. Okay, thank you.